to make a natural vivarium. In this video, I'll be teaching you how to build a beautiful natural vivarium from scratch. Alrighty, let's get started. First thing you're going to need is some white vinegar mixed in water in a spray bottle, a paper towel roll, a straight-edged X-Acto knife blade, several bottles of silicone depending on the size of aquarium or terrarium you're converting. And the type we'll be using is S1 silicone, which is devoid of all mold inhibitors. The spray foam we'll be using is Pond & Stone Great Stuff. It's animal safe and black in color, which is best for these projects. Now, for a super naturalistic look, you'll want to incorporate some wood and or bark into your design. For this project, I'm going to be using cork bark because it looks great, it doesn't break down easily, and it's even mold resistant. If your tank is used like the one I'm using is, start by wiping down the tank with the vinegar water and scraping off calcium buildup with your X-Acto knife if necessary. If your tank has front swinging doors, be sure that they are well supported whenever you're opening it on its backside, as unsupported doors can snap off real easily. I learned this the hard way a few years ago.
No! God, please, no! No!
Next step is envisioning your work of art. You need to decide where you want to have your pieces of bark in the background. Put some thought into this. Now comes the fun part, spray foam. Although I'm not leading by example in this particular scene, I would strongly suggest wearing gloves and safety glasses while using spray foam, as it's extremely sticky and does not come off easily at all. After 24 to 48 hours, your foam will have cured and you can move on to either carving the foam or turning the enclosure on its sides to lay bark and foam on other surfaces of the enclosure too. For this project, we'll be designing 3 sides of the enclosure. As an aesthetically pleasing and humidity increasing feature, I decided to incorporate a Zoomed Repti fogger into my design. This meant I had to create a hollow space in one side of the background to install the fogger hose line. In the same way that children use balloons to hold a paper mache project's shape, I stuck a toilet paper roll into the space where I wanted my fogger hose to fit, so that when I foamed over that area, it wouldn't droop down and block the space. I piled some cork in one side and left a few small spaces for the fog to pass through into the enclosure. After 24 hours of drying, I flipped the enclosure over and completed the opposite side and gave that side time to dry too. Now we're ready for our next step. As we approach the task of siliconing the entire background we've just created, we have to make sure that the foam is not only carved to the desired shape, but also devoid of smooth surfaces that won't allow the silicone to adhere too well. Only problem with that is spray foam always dries smooth, so we've got a lot of work to do. Now that all the carving is completed, it's time to bring out the silicone. First, prepare the substrate you intend to use as a background by ensuring it is dry, as damp material will not adhere to the silicone properly. I'm using dry peat moss for this build, however, products such as cocoa husk work just fine as well. After putting on your rubber gloves and moving to a well-ventilated workspace, begin to apply the silicone to the dried and carved foam in generous globs. Here's where things get really messy. Using one gloved hand, begin to smear the globs of silicone into the foam. Be sure to cover every speck of foam on the background, as the silicone must be applied to every section you intend to stick peat moss to. Generously apply peat moss to the area you've siliconed over and give it a good pat down afterwards. After 24 hours or so, I use a shop vacuum to suck up all the excess peat moss so that any unfinished spots are made visible. Apply silicone to such spots and cover them up with peat moss. Once you've completed one side, you can move on to the next surface or side of the background. Having finished the background, I reoriented the enclosure to a standing position to make sure I got all the touch-up spots. After this, I decided to test out the fogger corner I had designed. I don't know about you, but I think that turned out great. Next, I installed some of my terrarium jungle vines. You can learn how to make the exact same ones by watching my tutorial linked here. Once I've completed the background, I usually spray down the whole thing, let it dry, and do this maybe 2 or 3 times before introducing any animals or plants. Although the silicone is animal safe, it does leave some odor, so doing this procedure, I feel, helps clean the background properly. Not too shabby if I do say so myself. Because I intend to create tropical vivariums that will experience several cycles of misting a day, it's important that I add a drainage layer that ensures my vivarium substrate won't remain waterlogged. I'm using hydroton, which are essentially expanded clay pebbles. By having the drainage layer, water is able to pass through the soil and descend below it, making sure the soil remains in a healthy and natural state. Once the hydroton has been poured in and spread evenly, I use a simple landscaping style fabric to create a barrier between the soil and the drainage, as without this, obviously soil is free to pass through and mix with hydroton. I've taken the liberty of adding the most affordable Amazon links to hydroton and all the other necessary components of this project in my video description, so feel free to take a look at those if you can't find certain items locally. Make sure that your fabric allows water to pass through it efficiently, because if you don't, you'll obviously have drainage problems. Moving on, I prepared my soil mix, a tutorial of which is linked here for anyone that wants to make the same mix I use. Awesome! Before we add humidity to this tank, there's one more thing I still need to customize, and that's my little fog bark corner. For this, I'm simply going to use hot glue, mosquito mesh from the hardware store, and Exoterra forest moss to conceal it. Because I intend to house satanic leaf-tailed geckos in this enclosure, I need to make sure that they can't climb into the space the fog passes through and get stuck behind the background. All I really had to do here was glue suitably sized mesh over the small gaps, trim away the excess mesh, and then glue on the moss. Pretty easy. Gotta say, I'm quite happy with how this turned out. Make sure your vivarium plants are both washed thoroughly and also transplanted into soil media that doesn't contain chemicals and/or fertilizers. You can actually just use the soil that you prepared for the enclosure. For this build, I decided to keep most of my plants in their pots. However, you can certainly remove them and allow them to grow unconstrained. Remember that lighting is also a very important component to your vivarium. In combination with any lighting your animals require, I recommend adding some T5 plant grow lights such as sun blasters or even high output aquarium lights. This is called Terrarium Putty, a nifty soil clay based terrarium resource I crafted. To learn how to make some, follow the link here when you're ready. What I'm doing here is using it to build a small retaining wall that will permit me to plant this fern on this ledge. By doing this, I can add more soil for the plant to be nestled in as well. As shown in the Terrarium Putty tutorial, I'm taking a bit of soil here to conceal it afterwards. Get creative and have fun with this. Try to envision how nice it'll look when the terrarium grows in for a few months. I took advantage of having a few climbing plants grow on my terrarium vines in background. I also used the terrarium putty to secure a few branches to the back wall until their roots would anchor on there themselves. I've added some dry oak leaves for natural ground cover and for isopods and springtails to consume and live under. Spraying down the leaves with some reverse osmosis water will help soften them and make them more flat. So there you have it. I really hope this video helped you learn how to make your very own natural vivarium. If you liked the finished result, or felt the video helped you in any way, please drop a like for me down below. I really appreciate the support. If you have any questions, feel free to ask down below in the comment section, and I'll do my best to respond as soon as possible. For all my viewers and all my new viewers, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for future content coming up every single week. Lastly, I'd like to give my friend Mike Taitula, also known as Graphic Phoenix, a big shout out.
Hey, what's up guys, it's Graphic Phoenix back with another video today.
Mike has an incredibly informative and entertaining YouTube channel for those of you who are interested in reptiles and amphibians, their care and husbandry, terrarium plant growth and propagation, and so many how-to videos I don't even know where to begin. He keeps poison dart frogs, Leachianus geckos, red ackies, a Herman's tortoise, a blue-tongued skink, and plenty of healthy animals he shares weekly with his followers. Do me a favor and show some support for Mike by following the link in my video description to his channel to check out his work and subscribe to him. It would mean a lot to me if you guys could show him some support back, and I'm confident you guys will enjoy his content.